Welcome back, and we are live on all our social media handles, on X Spaces, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on myjoyonline.com. Your comments are welcome, especially your expectations of the 2025 budget and economic statement of Ghana. Now let's talk about something that is claiming more lives in Ghana. Now, between January and June 2024, 1,237 Ghanaians lost their lives in road crashes, whilst 7,561 others sustained varying degrees of injuries. Alarming as these figures are, they represent just the surface of a deeper crisis in Ghana's transportation system that remains one of the deadliest in Africa. Even 68 years after independence, more than 50% of the country's roads remain untarred, as railway system hardly function, not to even talk about water transportation. But what is the root cause of this persistent challenge? Is it poor road engineering, inadequate road safety education, or weak enforcement of traffic regulations? And how can we build a robust integrated transport system as a country? We'll explore these pressing questions shortly. But first, though, let's take a closer look at how road crash statistics have evolved over the years. And my colleague from our data will join us shortly. But before he's on, let me walk you through what we have managed to put together. So on your screens right now, we have road traffic accidents for the year 2023. 2024, report is yet to be released, so we can stay with the latest. And the latest, as at the last count, remains 2023. Now, crashes, 14,000 cars were involved in various accidents, 14,133. Now, out of these 14,000 cars that were involved in accidents, 2,276 lost their lives, sadly. Whether in accidents, walking by the roadside, and they got run over by a vehicle. Over the weekend, we had two former students of Achimota School, after participating in the school event, were run down by a vehicle. Two of them died on the spot. Road trends traffic accident 2021 to 2023. That is what you have on the screens now, and it appears to be going up. There's an upswing from 2011 all the way to 2023. The only time it came down was somewhere around 2016, where we recorded 8,651, accidents. But I mean, there's been an upward trajectory all the way from 2011 all the way to 2023. So this is, the statistics as we have it. Accidents also, if you check from 2011, same period as 2023, we've witnessed some accidents. The highest it went was in 2021, where we recorded 2,924 deaths from road, accidents or crashes. And as we have 2276. So these are the slides that we have for you this afternoon here on the pulse, and it is situated the broader discussion that we'll be having on the program. Now, in the studio, I'm privileged and delighted, in fact, honored to welcome Professor Emeritus Kwesi Kwafo Adakwa, and he has published widely on this subject. Prof, you're welcome. Prof is also a former Vice Chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And I remember in my days as reporter for Love FM, I was attached to KNUS, and we had a lot of time together. Prof.
You give us a lot of problems.
It's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
All right. Yeah. So before Prof, take us through what we are missing, what can be done in the whole transportation, ecosystem, how would you describe Ghana's transportation system? We'll find answers to these questions. But joining me is the acting chief of the National Road Safety Authority, Abraham Amaliba, and he joins me via Zoom. Mr. Amaliba, good to see you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pulse.
Good afternoon, and let me say, I am not happy with what is happening on our roads now.
You not even wait for me to congratulate you on your new post.
Well, go ahead and congratulate me, but I think that there's a need to show concern about the spate of accidents in this country.
I mean, the numbers appears to be going up every year. I don't know what you inherited and what the problem could be.
Well, when I took over office, what I realized was that the two major causes of our road accidents has to do with driver indiscipline and pedestrian indiscipline. There are other causes, but if we are able to fix these two, the speed or rate of crashes would reduce. And so I embarked on visits to some of our roads in Accra, particularly to check pedestrian crosses and pedestrian bridges. And tomorrow I'm going to have a meeting with the Road Highways Authority to discuss my findings with them and how they can help to ensure that we have more pedestrian crossways.
What kind of findings are we talking about here?
So we realized that on some stretches within the city, there were no road markings. In some other instances, the road markings were faint. Then we also realized that there were no street lights. That's when we are driving in the night. And we thought that we need to bring this to the attention of the urban rules as well as the Highways Authority.
I do know, for example, you've already met with 2M Transport Services. I wonder why that particular entity was isolated for that particular meeting.
Well, we had reports concerning overspeeding of their vehicles. And we thought that we needed to caution them. And so I summoned them to the office, and together with my directors, we had to give them some compliance notices, actions that they have to take to ensure that there's safety on our roads when they are driving. So, for instance, we indicated to them that they need to maintain a logbook which will indicate when they left their station and then when they arrive at their destination. We also indicated to them to have periodic training of their drivers because we were available to do that for them. Apart from that, we also asked them to have checks, health checks of their drivers to, as it were, if any driver consumes alcohol to a certain level, he's not allowed to drive. And so we gave them some compliance notice, which will mean that if they go back and they violate those directives, then we'll have to clamp down upon them. So we are not sleeping on our jobs.
And is it the understanding that the other transport operators, GPRTU, VIP, STC, they are not giving you so much problem that you would want to only focus on 2M?
2M Express was singled out because of complaints from the general public, precisely because of their overspeeding. We are not saying that the other operators are without blame, but we thought that this was an immediate issue because one of their vehicles got involved in an accident, which was so fresh. That was last 2 weeks ago. And so we thought we should deal with that canker immediately before issuing maybe directives to all other operators.
I ask because if you look at the National Road Safety Authority reports on accident, commercial vehicles always come on top. So what is the general, approach to dealing with them?
Well, the general approach is to enforce our road traffic regulations, LI 2180. And when you look at regulation 135, I guess I'm right, it talks about fitting vehicles with speed governors. Others will call it speed limiters.
Right.
So it is important that for commercial vehicles, just as how it is done in other countries, they are made to fit their vehicles with speed governors, which will show that beyond a certain limit, they cannot drive above that limit.
Right.
We also think that enforcement of that provision will require road operators not to tamper with those limiters or those governors. Else, if you fail to do that, you are liable for prosecution.
So counsel.
So the next step is to instruct them to begin to fit their vehicles, and we are going to do this in consultation with DVLA, so that commercial vehicles are fitted with road governors.
And if they don't, they'll be liable.
Speed governors, rather.
Yes, speed governors. If they don't, they'll be liable for prosecution.
If they don't, they will be liable for prosecution, because that is what LI 2180 provides.
Shouldn't it be such that in the absence of that, the DVLA, for example, would not have to certify those vehicles as roadworthy to be on our roads?
Yes, so it is part of the discussions we'll have with DVLA, so that even when you come to renew your road safety, they call it road, the renewal of your, hello?
The roadworthy certificate.
Roadworthy certificate. It will be part of it, and your failure to fit in those things will require that you will not be allowed to renew your license.
And when are you hoping to enforce this particular directive?
This evening, I'm meeting the director in his office. He's giving me 3 o'clock. I mean, the CEO of DVLA. Right. And I am taking this matter very seriously. So I'm meeting him this evening to start the discussions with him. Okay. The other matter is also, we are talking about also those who are using motorbikes for commercial purpose. The NDC, as part of this campaign, promised to legalize the operations of Okada riders. How far are we in making that a reality? First, we need to tinker with the law. There's going to be an amendment to the Roads Act. Now, the LI that should have brought into being this Okada, legalizing Okada, was withdrawn from Parliament, considering the fact that there was an outcry over sirens usage of the MPs. So this law is going back to Parliament, and so there's a review of the law, and when the law is passed, then the legalization will begin. In the meantime, a team has returned from Rwanda, and the team went there to understudy the Rwanda experience. The team is back. Tomorrow, I am meeting the Okada executives, riders executives, together with the tricycle riders executives in my office for them, or for us to start the processes. So the law needs to be amended while we also undertake this one. In the meantime, there's going to be a stakeholder engagement, about 4 of them. One in Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, and Ho. And so the stakeholder engagement would also allow people to give us some ideas, apart from what we learned from Rwanda. And
Mr. Maliba, are we certain that this move will not contribute even more to the fatalities we are witnessing on our roads?
We realized that in Rwanda, the enforcement of the laws, and here I'll call on the MTTD to, as it were, crack down on miscreants. We realized that the enforcement of the laws contributed to the smooth running of the Okada business in Rwanda. We also realized that, and I'm happy the police is beginning to put in place cameras on our roads. We realized that in Rwanda there were cameras that could easily identify offenders. And we also realized that the riders put on helmets. The passenger or whoever they carried also put on helmets.
Right.
And they were identified by jackets, or if you want, reflectors. They are numbering, the motor numbers were unique and could be easily identified or seen from a distance. So these best practices, when we implement them here, will go a long way to reduce the accidents that you are talking about. So we are equipped to be able to deal with the situation with the assistance of the MTTD.
You and I will agree that enforcement is a major issue in this country. I mean, this is not something that is new in terms of how we are dealing with road issues. Enforcement has always been our bane. We have all the fine laws, but implementing it always become an issue. And under your leadership, to what extent can we be certain that we will have minimal crashes, because people will begin to respect the law and to say that when you are expected to drive below 50, you drive below 50. If you are to go above 50, you go above 70. Enforcement for me is the key issue here.
What I didn't also tell you is that when I took over office, I met with transport operators in my office. And I didn't hesitate in telling them that as a lawyer, my only tool is to use the law to ensure obedience and compliance. It is the reason why you saw me summoning 2M Express.
Right.
Yes. It is the reason why you saw that happening. It's the reason why you are seeing me going to engage with the Highways Authority, because I think that they are in charge of road markings. And what we saw, I wasn't happy. We could easily sanction the Highways Authority, but I want to engage them first. And so under my regime...
In terms of the road markings?
The road markings, yes. Where the stakeholder fails to, perform its obligations, the Road Safety Authority has the mandate to sanction that authority or that institution. So you can be assured that with my background as a lawyer, the only thing I know is to use the law to exact compliance.
Right. What about malfunctioning traffic lights? I mean, for example, there's this busy intersection, the Stambik area close to the airport traffic light. I'm talking about the Stambik area. For those coming from Alain Francais trying to join the main highway, from Alain Francais all the way to that place, the traffic light doesn't work. So sometimes when you get there, you are not sure whether you are to go or you are to stay. And it's been so for at least for over 2 years. There are certain places in Accra that I can point to that traffic lights are not working. These are not the doing of motorists. It's the doing of the authorities. What will you do in this direction as well?
I couldn't agree with you more. That is one of the issues we identified when I went on my road trip. The institution that is responsible for fixing our
traffic lights and those things.
Traffic lights, yes, traffic lights particularly is the urban roads. So tomorrow's meeting is a two-pronged meeting. After I finish with the Highways Authority, and luckily they are all in the same, they are both in the same building, I will deal with urban roads as well.
Okay.
I would also, at another date, because I have to consult the Regional Coordinating Council, bring all the district assemblies together because they are in charge of street lightening. I'm aware that Energy Commission provides them with money to do the street lightening. So I will engage them. I'm told there are about 27 of the assemblies. I will engage them to ensure that they are up to their task on street lighting.
My final question, this is maybe on a lighter or a semi-lighter side. Someone just sent me a text and says that anytime he goes to renew his driver's license, he's taken to a long process, including the testing of his eye to make sure that the eyesight is good. And so if sometimes in the event that the eye is not really where it's supposed to be, recommendation is that you speak to a specialist. Sometimes they are giving glasses to help them drive and drive well, and to help the eyesight generally. He's never come across any commercial driver wear glasses. Is it the case that commercial drivers have perfect eyesight that they obviously don't need it?
That will be a question to the DVLA because I don't do the testing in my office here. But that's a very good question. So does it mean that all commercial drivers have their eyesight perfect? If that is the case, then the DVL is doing well. But if that is not the case, but you see, we are, as road safety, we are instituting some health checks at the various stations. So at the station where you are supposed to move your car, the drivers who are supposed to drive out of the station are given some checks before they move. And so that is also a new thing, not a new thing as such, but that is something that we hope to institute. And so if your eyes are good at the DVLA and we find that they are not good at the station, we'll stop you from moving the car. All
right. Council, thank you so much. Ibrahim Amaleba is the Acting Chief Executive Officer of the National Road Safety Authority. And of course, we're going to spend more time to talk, but this is just one of the foundations that we are laying. Now, in the studio this afternoon is Professor Adakwa, former Vice Chancellor of the KNUST. And Prof, as you may be aware, has worked on the transport sector projects in Ghana, including the National Transport Policy, Buankra Inland Logistics Terminal, the Tema Impakadan Railway Line, the Ghana-Burkina Faso Interconnectivity Railway Project, the Eastern and Central Spine Railway Lines, as well as transport economists. In addition, he's also worked on roads projects, including the feasibility of rehabilitation of feeder roads in the Afram Plains, the National Feeder Roads Rehabilitation and Maintenance Project, Northern Region Pilot Infrastructure, and the Pukuasi Interchange financed by the African Development Bank. So he is more than situated to give us expert advice on the way forward. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And again, good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, you are doing well good in retirement and still working for Mother Ghana.
Oh, thank you very much.
So before we go into some of the issues that we'll be talking about, you heard the National Road Safety Authority CEO. First is, to put in a system that will limit speeding vehicles, if you like. I don't know if for you that's the way to go in terms of dealing with accidents on our roads.
Well, thank you very much. I think to start off with, I would like to wish all of us the best of luck.
Thank you.
If you look at the situation as we find it now, my approach would not be simply to scratch the surface in a panic mode and then go and do things that later on will regret. I'm saying this because recently my research has been on the Okada and then what we call the Aboboya.
Aboboya.
Very well.
There's also Pragya.
Yeah, Pragya. We've done work and I've published 2 articles, I think within the last quarter of last year and this year.
Okay.
One was in the African Journal of Transport and the second one was in what we call TRB, Transport Review Board Journal. They all dealt with this particular issue. First, if you look at the Boboya, there's no doubt it contributes a lot to local economic development.
There are some places even used for transportation.
Exactly. I'll come to that in the northern region. And then the other one looked at the crashes, the rates. I've argued with the Building and Road Research Institute for a while, but I think the crashes we had, even though it was a sample survey, we're talking about upwards of 40%.
40%.
It's risky, very, very risky. Yes. So let's be very careful before we go in. If it's possible, maybe they may not agree to this, but let's try and pilot it first and see what the effects are. The
commercialization of local.
And then we can escalate this into a full-blown project. If you go countrywide, it will be very difficult. I'm saying that because we're talking about not just the movement of passengers, as we did with the 2M. We're talking about the movement of passengers and the movement of freight. That's very dangerous.
Yes.
When the two crash, the fatalities are very high. So I would say that let's move cautiously. It's very difficult for us. And you see, the cost, I'm very happy the director mentioned, the chief executive mentioned the causes. Human behavior.
Right.
How do we change this? It doesn't change over time. It doesn't change with simply laws. There's a lot more to it. And I'll suggest that we take our time and do the groundwork, and then we can go into implementation. Other than that, I'm sorry, we'll have a lot of difficulty on our hands. I'm happy you mentioned the Northern Region Pilot Infrastructure Project.
Right.
Within a radius of about 20 kilometers out of Tamale, we did this project. And at the time, what we saw was that access was very important. Somebody to get into town, somebody to get into the hospital, they need to rush a pregnant woman in labor to the hospital and so on. And when you get into those circumstances, anything goes.
Right.
And so what we did was to construct very, very simple routes. And then they started using bicycle trailers and so on and so on. We saw that the impact was substantial. And even then, what we call Boboya now, people are going for a funeral, you could see about 12 of them packed in the bucket.
Yeah, you see it, especially in some of in some of the urban areas, not just rural areas.
Yes. What you see is that in some of these areas, anytime there's a crash, there's somersault, and it affects their spinal cord. And so we're talking about a situation, and it's not a joke. It's a reality. Even in Accra, you hear rumors around that almost every day we tend to lose one Okada driver, a rider. It may be true if you look at what is happening. And when they go to the hospital, they don't also receive the best of treatment.
No, I hear once you get there, your leg being chopped off is sometimes the first attempt.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting that we take our time and look at all of this carefully before we go into implementation.
But there's also the issue of, in some of these underserved areas, this obviously will remain the only means of transport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only means of transport doesn't mean drive any way you want it. If you watch it, even in the urban areas, we have underage kids who are riding the Okada.
Yes.
Why should it be so? And yet we have laws in our law books. Why should it be so?
If others will go to, even here in Accra, places like Dome, Asharman, that's all you will see.
Yes.
Market women using it, even people using it as taxi, if you like.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting that let's not look at it just in terms of passengers. Passengers and goods. The market women, they don't have any means to bring the food from the farm gate to the urban area. So what do? They go look for Boboya to carry it.
But they say that they're already doing it. So why don't we find a way to regularize their activities, give them some sort of training so that they will be minded when they are on the road?
Are we able to regulate them? Well, John, I'm asking you a question.
For now, there's none. There's no regulation.
Exactly. Some time ago, we said they shouldn't transport goods along the major trunk roads and the motorway. How do we see now?
They're everywhere.
If you're
transporting water, some
you can get someone to take you to Sege to someone. You can get them.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not good. It's not good. So let's be very, very careful.
The chief executive said that they sent a team to Rwanda where motorbike for commercial activity is accepted.
Right.
So they'll be drawing lessons from there that will guide them in fashioning the law to put before Parliament for the regularization of the activities.
That's true. They've done a very good work. But I think that human behavior in Rwanda is not the same as the way we behave here in Ghana. While we were coming to the studio, I kept shouting because I saw a lot of these Okada riders running through red lights.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
They are immune from traffic regulations.
It's very dangerous. And I think that from what I see, I went to Tamale once. I was going to church on Sunday morning. I jumped in one of them. My goodness, my heart was virtually in my hands. So we got to the Presby Church. So let's be very careful. If we can regulate them, all well and good.
So what do you suggest now?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that what I'm suggesting is that it's good they say they are going to do the consultation. That's excellent. Let them do that. Let's compile all the experiences and let's see the way forward. If it's possible, can we experiment or can we pilot this somewhere? Learn lessons because of our context. It's very different from Rwanda. And the urban context is there and the rural context is there. So let's see if we can build up some experiences with which subsequently we can go into a full-blown project, a full-blown implementation.
Prof, as a country, do we really take serious, or do we pay serious attention to transportation? Let's start from road transportation. We'll get to maybe river or sea transportation. I mean, the statistics from the Ghana Road Safety Authority, just at the end of 2023, suggests that over 14,000 crashes were recorded. Out of the number, almost 3,000 lost their lives.
And that's
it's like
serious.
Driving on our roads has become more like a death center. You are lucky if you get to your destination safely.
That's right. That's right. And I'm sure you've also heard about your relatives who've come from the States or somewhere who refuse driving on our roads.
Yes.
Just because of that.
And so what exactly are we doing wrong?
I think partly it's also the enforcement, and then the education. I don't think we have it right. And the enforcement is really key. And I'm happy that the Chief Executive mentioned the enforcement. So let's look at those two things properly. And you see, we are not trained to do this. We are not trained to drive. Generally, generally speaking, that is what I see. We need to be trained properly. We need to obey road regulations, road signs, the signage on our roads. I'm sure you've heard about this popular story where they say when you see two cattle on the signage,
you should park and well eat.
So it's a very serious matter.
So it is not enough to master the skill to move a vehicle.
No, that's not enough. And the education is continuous, or should be continuous. Maybe every 2 years or so, you go and renew your license, you go through the test again, and so on and so forth. You mentioned eye test. It's very, very important. But you see, you and I, we can sit in our homes and have our certificates renewed for us, our licenses.
Yes.
It's not fair to the other road users. So let's do, the laws are there. I think we have enough of them. He mentioned the LI 2180, they are there. But let's see if we can do more work on the enforcement. And MTTD, well, they are doing also a good job. But you stop 10 people and ask them what their views are on the MTTD. I'm sure you can imagine what the response would be.
And that for me is where the issue is.
The attitude.
Exactly. And that's, even we have state agencies, their job, for the driver, if we leave him, he will just misbehave.
Right.
But there are agencies that are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that there is sanity on our roads. Yet, the situation is not getting any better.
It's not getting any better. I think I've mentioned it. It's a human attitude. Well, in this case, the attitude of the Ghanaian. If you cross the border to Togo, would you behave that way? You dare not. So. You dare not. Burkina, you can't do that. How come in our own country, because of the liberty we have, look at what we're doing. Yeah? So I think that the human attitude is also very important, and we need to see how best we can influence it or change it. But we need to be restricted or restrained from doing certain things on the road. Otherwise, we're going to see these accidents escalating from now into the near future.
What about the roads we have? Are they built to offer that kind of safety for drivers and pedestrians?
To a very wide extent, I'll say yes, they are. They are. Because if you're familiar with the sector, I'm sure you've heard that we even do road audits. They are. The problem comes down to the driver in the vehicle. So you're talking about the driver, the vehicle, and the road infrastructure. Okay? The driver may be the excellent of drivers. If he runs a very rickety vehicle, he runs into trouble. If he doesn't follow road signs, he may even attempt to overtake in the curve, and so on and so forth. So these are all contributing to our current situation, and we need to look at all of them together. I think it's important. And it's going to meet the responsible agencies. And I think it will help us a great deal.
But in terms of planning, and then the fact that sometimes a road is constructed, a year or two, it develops potholes, we don't even maintain it. So after a few years, it is back to zero. So will you say that not a lot goes into planning?
Oh, no. I won't agree with you on that. The planning is done thoroughly. The supervision is done thoroughly. In some cases, perhaps you can say they are laxes, but generally, supervision is good and the planning is very good. When planning, for example, you're not looking at just the road condition, how it's connected with all the other network, the entire network. And that is also very useful. You see, our traffic volumes have increased also substantially over time, very short time.
But that also brings into sharp focus the issue of planning.
Yes.
I know, for example, you drove all the way from Kumasi to Accra.
Yes.
And then you saw the scale of construction works on the road. And this is not the first time. In fact, that road has seen more construction, I mean, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Why can't you get it right once and then move to the situation where we'll continually maintain the road? I'm sure in the next 5 years, what we are witnessing now, we'll go through another phase of construction.
Okay.
So it boils down to planning.
No, I don't think so. I think it boils down to something we call EGA. You understand EGA?
Don't tell me.
Yes, money. You see, you can plan your maintenance activities and say that you do routine maintenance every year. When you don't have the money, you can't do that. If you go to periodic maintenance every 4 years, 5 years, you do this. You can't do that. So the road is left, it will run into disrepair, and that is when our problems begin. Okay? If we had people on the roads and they were working diligently, I'm sure we could deal with a lot of these things. So that's just on the roadside. But the other aspects, as I said, the driver and the quality, the vehicle itself that we're using. Go on the roads, you see, but go outside the major urban areas. You see rickety taxis.
Of course. And sometimes you wonder how they were, they were certified as roadworthy.
They have roadworthy stickers. I'm sure you drive a very nice car. Every year you make sure you go and renew it.
Of course.
They don't do that. So enforcement is there. Let's restrain our behavior and let's change. Because this is the only country we have.
The road safety officer says that they are implementing what they call some machine to limit the speed. Is it the best approach?
Yeah, you can do the SCC. I'm sure you've heard about SCC.
Yes.
They have that. They have that. And you can do that. So if the guy flouts it, what happens? If you're using a logbook, they need to put in the right information. If they don't, what happens? That will constitute an infraction. And they need to be dealt with.
We have MTTD staff on almost all our major roads. And I remember I traveled out of the country once and I drove in the United States from one state to the other. When I was on the highway, the limit was 65 and then they allow 10 more. So I went beyond it. And then a police officer a police officer pulled behind me. He asked for my driver's license. You realize that I was just visiting. So he gave me a warning.
You were very lucky. Because he used his discretion. You were extremely lucky. You could have landed in jail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't do that. Respect their laws. And so if somebody visits Ghana, he doesn't hold Ghanaian license, doesn't hold international license, he shouldn't drive.
But the point is that taught me a lesson. That even if you don't see a police officer, you should respect their laws.
Yeah.
Because the vehicle I was driving will tell me that you are going beyond, that you should need to limit your speed.
If you see a red light, you stop, a complete stop.
But why do we have MTD people on the road? And yet people drive, I mean, somebody set off and they call another person, I'm going to Kumasi, time me in 2 hours, I should be at Ejuso. And but you have MTD like 20 on the road, and yet they will go past every stop and will get to their destination within 2 hours, when they are supposed to do 4 hours. Okay,
if you be kind enough with me, I also want to dodge this question to say that the matter is not properly before me.
But for me, final question on the roads, and then we'll come back to what I...
Right.
I mean, do we deserve the kind of road we have between Accra and Kumasi, for example?
No. As you are aware, Accra-Kumasi is the most heavily trafficked road in the country. And I've heard people say that, if even we were doing this in a piecemeal manner, maybe 6 kilometers a year and so on, would have gone very far. So in short, if you look at the volume of traffic, then perhaps we don't deserve this type of traffic. And the people moving, people and goods, you try going to Kumasi even on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
You see all the trucks, articulated trucks.
Yes.
You can be in a convoy for 20 minutes. And if you are not patient, what will happen to you? If you are not careful and you are not patient, you could run into a crash. So I'm saying that, in short, I agree with you, we probably don't deserve this type of road.
Tell me the rationale behind the Mpakadan Railway, for example, because we worked on it.
Okay. The Mpakadan Railway line, I think it's also partly designed to relieve us of the stress on our roads. And as you know, when you're transporting freight over long distances, 400, 500 kilometers, the cost per ton kilometer becomes much, much, much cheaper, okay, if you use water transport. So far, that's about the cheapest. Okay? Water transport, followed by rail and road and all the other modes of transport. So we think that if we have this resource there, we need to use it. And to use, if we are using it, by international law, we should provide access to the landlocked countries to get to Tema.
Right.
And if we are going to do this, we cannot sit and get all of them go onto the road to get their goods, containers and so on there. If they do this, our roads are going to run into disrepair in a very short time.
Right.
So we think that this is what we can do. So you put a container on a truck from Tema to Mpakadan. It should have been the marina in Akosombo, but we refused to go there because of the blasting. So you get to marina, it's put onto the Volta Lake, it gets to Yape, and it can continue its journey back right into the destination, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali by road. Okay, so that is the rationale. It's actually the cost, and if you remember, the cost of transportation has a rippling effect on virtually everything in our lives.
Yes.
So,
but we are witnessing food inflation because of how it is transported to the market centers.
At times, they don't even have transport. They have to head load. And head load is very expensive. And therefore, I think that one of the things we want to do there, just as we did in the Afram Plains, would be to lower transport costs. If we can do this, you see inflation coming, most likely to come down.
So the Mpakadan project is it solely for the transportation of goods?
No,
what about?
It's both. Railway, for goods and then for passengers.
Right.
Or for freight and passengers.
Is it possible to replicate it across the country?
It's a cost. Last year, we're looking at the figures of about $4 million per kilometer.
For real?
Yeah, for real. It's expensive. So that's why we appear to have stalled. If we can get money, we can do this within a very short period.
And the interesting, I think in 2004, the Ghana Railway Company, raised a concern where even the tracks that they've constructed, some people have gone to remove some of the railings and sold as scraps.
See, this is what I was referring to as our human behavior. We have lost. I'm sure nothing happened to them. I'm very, very sure nothing has happened to them. Okay, so that's our human behavior.
But the question also, when you construct the rail tracks, you don't put the train on it and you leave it at that, that is what it invites.
It's true, but why should that be the case? A railway line with trucks, steel trucks, and you want to go and destroy the trucks and take them to go and sell as what they call alumi
scraps.
My goodness.
And at the last count, almost $200 million had been stolen.
Yeah. Is it not an attitudinal problem? It's an attitudinal problem, I think. It has nothing to do with you being unemployed and so on and so forth. The trucks are there. But where you are right is that if we leave it unused for a very long time, it will attract the attention of such people.
The Mpakadan, has it got any relationship with Wankra? Because it appears to have similar functions.
Very good. I'm sure you've heard about integrated transport system.
Yes, Prof.
Now, we want the shipper who has imported something from Frankfurt to Tema to have a choice. Okay? Either you go through Wankra or you go through Mpakadan. If you're going to go through Wankra, the assumption is that you carry your container or your box to Wankra by rail. When it gets to Wankra, say within Kumasi, Tichuan and so on, you can use Wankra. And those going to the northern regions and beyond can use the Mpakadan, which will give them a combination of the rail, the road, the water transport, and then to the final destination would be by road.
Right.
You see, it gives a door-to-door service.
Right.
And that is why it's more convenient. People like it. Unlike the rail, which is rigid. So you get to a station, you have to continue to the rest of your trip on a vehicle. But if it's the vehicle or the road, it can take you right to your doorstep. So that's the advantage.
Prof, why is the Wankra stalling?
Wankra, it hasn't really stalled, except that progress is slow. It's all to do with what I mentioned earlier on EGA. The money simply not there. we've been looking for concessionaires to come and run this project for us, okay? Just as they've done in other countries. There are so many inland ports and logistics terminals within Africa and the rest of the world. So we need to also, it's a technology that is coming, we need to take advantage of that. And so it's not stalling. Very soon, you'll see the structures come up, okay? You will have a police station, you have a
the administration block is there.
Yes.
Built several years ago.
Yes. We are refurbishing it. So we're going to use that as part of the offices for some of the departments. So
it is possible that project will come to fruition.
It is. Let's get a concession.
The original plan was to, when up and running, containers bound for Burkina Faso and the likes will be transported via rail to Buankra.
Yeah, but you see, until the railway is fixed, we'll have a lot of difficulty. So let's leave the choice to the shipper.
Right.
And then they will want the two Buankra and Pakadan to compete with each other. And if they do that, the shippers finally will be better off.
Few issues, and then I know in 2018, for example, we're a member of my uncle, Justice Bobe's committee.
Yeah.
And the work resulted in the creation of 6 more regions. What development challenges did you travel around the country review to you? Well,
there are many, but let me limit myself to a few.
Of course.
In the northern region, for example, traveling from Tamale to Yagaba, the same region, it would take you about 3.5 or 4 hours. The same region. The problem was a problem of access. The road condition wasn't too good, and so you had to slow down. So when on our return trip, we went through Fumbisi to Sandama, to Navrongo, Bolga, and then to Tamale. It was faster. Okay? So, but why should this be so? So the problem of access, that's one of the major problems. Now, access not to just educational facilities, access to justice, access to several other central functions. And this is why we felt that the creation of those regions become necessary. And now if you go around, most of them have their regional administrations. They are looking for regional medical officers and so on and so forth. So development is now taking place. Decentralization is being strengthened and so on and so forth. Access to services is being improved.
Okay. 42 years of service at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. How will you describe it?
Well, it's been fruitful. A lot of very excruciating moments, but overall it's been very, very fruitful. I think that, as you said, I've been able to rise from the lowest level up to the top. So somebody will say, I've seen it all.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for me, with humility, I'm saying that I've been I'll be grateful to God because I've been able to serve my generation. So that's why I've still remained there.
And at VC and then re-elected to also for another 2-year term. What are some of the achievements you can walk us through?
Oh, okay. If you know the campus very well, I did a lot. If you start off from the Kisley Hayford administration, the block, it was meant to be an examination block.
Yes.
Now it's been taken up by offices and so on. You can move from there, come to the Pajo. If you remember the TEF that we have there. What's the name now? It's escaped me. The
stadium?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not as true. It's not as true.
Okay. The stadium itself, the pitch.
Yes, the stadium itself. That was done. And then you move from the stadium, you can go up towards the Africa Hall. You see the student clinic. I did that. You can go to the hospital, the theater. We had one operating table. Now they have many. You did that. The pharmacy, and then most importantly, the OTC.
Of course.
Of 32 Medical Center.
Right.
That's all done. And then you can come again to transport the open air parking facility. You can come back to Akodia Road where you see infilling. Previously, we had one bungalow sitting on 1.5 acres of land.
Yes.
Where on earth would you get this? So we have started infilling, building duplexes, and so on and so forth. The Unity Hall Road, if you remember, it was really bad shape.
Yeah.
We had to fix it quickly because that impacted on us adversely.
Yeah, criminals took advantage of the poor.
I was talking about the tartan trucks.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to fix that.
Okay.
And it was used as a training center for the Cantu 8
of course
competition that was held in.
And you've crowned this with an autobiography, Against All Odds. And that the launch is coming up pretty soon. Tell us a bit of what really is contained in this book. Yeah. I'm eager to read it.
Contained in this book, I like to say that it's targeted at various stakeholders in the educational space. We're talking about students, we're talking about faculty, we're talking about senior staff, We're talking about everybody who has a stake in it. All I'm saying is that if you read it, you see my beginnings. I started school in this city, Police Depot Primary School. You know, barracks boy.
Tesano.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we don't. So we didn't call it Tesano, but barracks boy.
Okay.
How on earth do you expect that I would have gone this far? So because of that, when we went to Koforidua, I was moved from the barracks to attend a boarding school, and then from there to Fansfim and so on and so on. All I'm saying is that economics or finance could be a major obstacle. And as you move along your life or one's life, you see that one comes face to face with a number of obstacles. But aside from all those things, it is still possible to achieve your objective.
And we can just show the book to our cameras, and the launch is when, Prof?
20th of March,
20th
which
of
is
March.
This coming Thursday's week at the KNUST Business School auditorium, and we're talking about auditorium C. Yeah.
All right, but so who you are inviting everybody to come?
Yes, we haven't seen you for a long time.
Of
so
course,
come,
I'll be there. Absolutely,
and bring a lot of money.
Sure, Prof. And this is again on the 20th of March at the KNUST Great Hall.
No. Business School.
Business School, KNUST Business School. Before I let you go, there's still the issue of, the funding of tertiary education. The many challenges with it, from access to cost and quality,
everything.
And everything. How do you go around this? There's a new government in place.
Yeah. I wasn't part of the forum, but I think that I'm hoping that we can have an opportunity to also talk,
sure.
Maybe by Zoom or whatever. But I think that, as you are aware, KNUST has been determined to be the #1 globally for the access to quality education.
Sure.
This was done by no mean group. The Times Higher Education, they did this in 2023. Okay? Meaning that we're doing something right.
Right.
So in terms of access or quality education, we're doing our best. But let's go slow with the numbers. KNUST, if you believe it, from the times we were there, now we're about 85,000. 20,000 would be those who are campus. It's not a joke.
60,000.
Yes, it's not a joke. So we're doing very well.
But it's an entire community.
It's a township.
Right.
It's a township. So we're doing very well, but I think that we can do with a lot more resources. At KNUST, they've been very, very innovative. They are finding solutions to their problems, but it's not enough. We need to do a bit more.
And then, for example, for those who pray to get into KNUST or any other public university and they are unable to gain admission, the only resource is to go to some of these private universities. I don't know.
That's not the only resource. They can also do distance learning.
Exactly. Yeah. And other things. But generally, there are so many private universities in the country now. Is it helping in terms of access to tertiary, education?
It's helping. It's helping. If one of our universities, one of the new ones, the public ones, this year they took about 4,000. Where would they have gone? They don't also have money. Remember I said one of my odds here was money.
Right.
They don't have the means to go to a private university.
It's very expensive.
Yes. So that's very important for us. So we should keep them, but let's give them the support they need.
All right. So, folks, against all odds, that's Prof. Autobiography. The launch is coming up on March 20th at the KNUST Business School. And time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. All right. You really have to be there. You need to get this book and read.
And you will be there.
Of course, 100%. I won't miss this for anything. Prof, thank you so much for coming through for us. And as always, good to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Professor Kwesi Kwafo Adakwa is a former Vice Chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll talk about the budget that is coming up, the presentation that is coming up tomorrow. We'll speak to some interest group. I heard their expectation, road contractors and others when we return from the short break. Welcome back to the show. This is The Pulse. You're enjoying it. Something we are all looking forward to tomorrow. The Finance Minister, Dr. Kesela Tuforsen, says the 2025 budget, which he will present to Parliament tomorrow, will focus on fulfilling the NDC's 120-day social contract as outlined in the 2024 manifesto. Speaking on an X-Spaces discussions with young people on Monday evening, he reiterated the government's commitment to significant tax cuts, including the removal of the E-Levy and other similar taxes.
The process to rationalize all the taxes at the port. We believe that some of the taxes and some of the levies in particular can be removed, because it will surprise you to know that all these levies and taxes does not come straight to the central government. Some of the levies you see there are being, the benefits is not going straight to support the consolidated fund. And so we need to identify who are those benefiting from these levies and for what purpose. And then if there's the need for us to remove them, we will have to remove them. So there's a team that are working at the moment as we speak. And I'm sure in due course, we will announce that. And again, in the budget, we'll hear some announcement on how we intend to rationalize those levies and taxes at the ports in particular. Even though some of these levies are not coming directly to support government expenditure or government revenues, clearly it manifests in the economy in the form of taxes.
Well, expectations are running wide, and I guess you know what. As Ghanaians await the 2025 budget presentation, concerns about taxation and economic policies continue to dominate discussions among traders. One key voice in this conversation is Clement Watson, the first vice president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, and the immediate past chairman of the Abosokan Spare Parts Dealers Association, who has been outlining his expectations of the budget, emphasizing the need to scrap the COVID-19 levy, the E-Levy, and other nuisance taxes that he believes are stifling businesses.
As a business community, there are things that we expect. We are in high expectation of the budget, which will be read tomorrow. In the run-up to the election, the various political parties paid a visit to us, and as part of the visit, there were some grievances that we put before them, each of the flag bearers, and they all assured us that if they come to power, definitely they were going to do something for us. And grievances that we put before them had to do with the high cost of doing business in Ghana, and what we also called the nuisance taxes. Yeah. So if I want to enumerate some of the nuisance taxes that we expect the government to abolish in tomorrow's budget reading, one had to do with the E-Levy, because we think the E-Levy has been very inimical as far as businesses are concerned. Then we also expect the abolishment of the 2% special imports levy. That import levy, after paying the actual import levy, they again slash 2% of whatever you have paid on it. And
well, the MPP is also, they've been talking, a former information minister, a member of parliament for actually in the Eastern region, and now minority spokesperson on the economy, Kojo Ponkroma, says the opposition expects the finance minister to present a truthful account of the economy inherited from the MPP administration. He has also been cautioned against the introduction of new taxes in the 2025 presentation tomorrow.
The first thing is that we expect the minister to be truthful to the economic record of this country. The economic record of this country is not in the mouth of any politician to mouth. The Ghana Statistical Service, and I understand later this morning, they're even going to do some work on the latest GDP numbers. The Bank of Ghana and other institutions of state regularly publish Ghana's economic record. I think that the minister should desist from any invitation from political forces to juice up the numbers to paint a more bleak story of the Ghanaian economy than is. Because if he does that, he will scare investors away. If he does that, he will not be true to the economic record of the country. What we need to do is to be true to the record and to build on the successes so far. That's number one. Number two, on the fiscal side, a lot of people are expecting the removal of these three taxes we have spoken about without an introduction of new taxes or padding onto it, some more VAT on other sectors, which will end up crippling other sectors of the economy.
Right.
Right, let me bring in some interest groups ahead of the presentation tomorrow, because a lot is at stake. Now, Ahmad Labi joins me via Zoom. Mr. Labi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Pulse.
Good afternoon.
So, I mean, you are president of the Progressive Road Contractors Association. Already, there are issues regarding payment of work done. Tomorrow is a day. What do you expect from the finance minister?
Tomorrow, good evening to colleagues. Tomorrow, what consulting operation actually, or the contractor fund is the road tools to be established. And the rate for the tools. The departing of the road and jet funds. Because at the moment, those funds have been capped. And it's creating a lot of problems.
It is difficult to hear you, Mr. Alabi. If you can maybe position yourself well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think it's better now. You were talking about trucks parked on the roadside.
Yes, the decoupling of the road fund. The road fund and the debt fund to be decapped.
Okay.
At the moment, it's been capped at over 35%. And we need to be decapped so that we be able to pay the contractors and have more jobs done.
And you think that
we want the road post to be really public. And also wait for the tools to go up from the motorbike from 10% to 1 city, practical to 2 cities, salon cars to 5 cities, SUVs and pickups to 10 cities, and beyond. Vehicle with ASO of more than 3 ASOs, more than 2 ASOs, to be paying 100 cities per ASO. They should be paying 100 cities per ASO when they have to register for the road working safety.
Okay. There are a few issues I want to put. I mean, the last time the roads minister spoke about the sector and the level of indebtedness, he mentioned, for example, that at this stage it will be difficult to give any promise as to when payments will be done. I mean, the budget will obviously offer some money to the sector to take care of other things, including possibly paying off debt. First of all, in terms of your members, how much are you owe, and what do you expect the budget to deal in terms of the work done so far and payment not coming?
You see, the decoupling of the road fund will actually let small money to pay. Because the road fund money is being taken elsewhere. Part of it is being taken elsewhere. And we need that money back. Seriously, from the time that the capping was done, we need all that money to be refunded to the road fund.
Okay.
Yes.
And obviously it will take a while before, I mean, every PESWA is paid, especially even for work done so far. Did you expect government to continue to award more contract when the one done has not even been paid?
You say government have decided to use some of the drip machines to do some of the projects. This is the reason why we have the potential for the drip machine.
Okay.
And I agree that we can award too many contracts this year because we need to find money to pay the contractors what they are owed. So the drip machine will be used to do some of the projects, and then there should be a proper provision on the drip machine.
Okay.
For this work.
We'll wait and hear the details in the budget tomorrow. Thank you very much, Mr. Hammond, for your time. He is the president of the Progressive Contractors Association. Let me bring in Dr. Joseph Obin, president of GUTA. Dr. Obin, we've heard from the finance minister. E-Levy will obviously go. The betting tax will go. COVID-19 levy obviously will go. I mean, you've been calling for this for some time now. This will come as good news for GUTA and, of course, yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So the minister have preempted most of the things that I wanted to say. As for us, the stability of the economy is very paramount to us. That budget should adopt measures to help strengthen and stabilize the local currency. It's very important to reduce inflation, interest rates, and improve other economic indicators, especially the exchange rate. These are the indicators that make business thrive. And so we are expecting that they put a very pragmatic measures that will ensure that we attain the stability that we so crave for. We are also expecting tax cuts.
Right.
And that the tax system should be streamlined. It's very important, with special emphasis to the VAT to be made more simplified and affordable and uniform as well. It should be restructured because the VAT as is structured now is not ensuring compliance, and it's not bringing parity, what I normally call parity, and fairness to businesses. The thresholds that defines who pays what should be removed. There shouldn't be any threshold. The thresholds should be removed so that we all pay the taxes, and it should be very uniform. We are also expecting that the dollar be fixed quarterly or biannually, so that prices will be stabilized.
Okay.
The fact that we always benchmark the duty payment with
the dollar, with the exchange,
with the foreign exchange is not helping us at all. So we also seek measures that.
Just one question, because we brought in the element of VAT. We've been told by the finance minister that they hope to expand the compliance level with VAT. Currently, it stands at 36%. For them, it's simply unacceptable. They are hoping to rake in more revenue. So they want to expand the compliance for VAT. I mean, when they talk about it, what do you expect should be done to make it, more compliance, so that those who are expected to charge VAT will willingly do so?
Okay, so the key to revenue enhancement is compliance. Right. There's no doubt about that. It's not about the numerous taxes that we charge or the high taxes that we charge. It's compliance is the key to revenue enhancement. And the key to compliance is simplicity and affordability, and the uniformity of these taxes. And this should be known to policymakers. And these are the things that drive revenue to be enhanced. And so if he's also talking in the same direction, then of course I will support him. But what we have to do is also enhance on revenue collection. We expect the budget to adopt measures that will effectively enhance on compliance, such as education, monitoring, and civilized enforcement. The underlining word, civilized enforcement, that we do not do the machoism and all that when we want to enforce on compliance. So we build the necessary systems to ensure that we normally toll to the line of compliance that will ensure that we get more revenue, and that the tax net should also be enhanced. The tax net should be expanded so that to rope in a lot more people outside the tax net. When that happens, then the overdependency on just a few of us to be paying the tax is reduced to barest minimum. And I was talking about the duties, and unfortunately, the minister seemed to know my mind, and that he said that they are going to rationalize the cost items at the port. Right. And it's very important that we rationalize those taxes and make sure that we prune the number of taxes there. It's about 22 cost items. We should be able to prune them down so that we'll be able to pay duties to be competitive in the sub-region. Right. To be able to also sell the goods at reasonable prices to our consumers. So I think we are in the same page.
Okay, we'll leave it here.
We are saying that we want the budget to also consider introduction of indemnity, amnesty to businesses with regards to our tax obligations. Because we are all talking about resetting the economy. It's true. Why are we resetting? Because we think that in the past, the tax system was so cumbersome. It was so cumbersome and so difficult to comply with. Means that most businesses will make mistakes, and that we should be forgiven those that, and then
start afresh.
Make us start afresh and reset our tax obligations again. And so it is very important that we consider all that. When we're able to do that, people will then start doing the right things, and then it will help enhance on the revenues that we so seek. Then, having collected all the monies and all that, what do we have to do? We have to rationalize expenditure as well. That we do not also overprice expenditure. That we have to do everything to reduce how we do we expend. We scrutinize our expenditure, evaluate it, and then ensure that we have value for money for expenditure, and also to avoid waste and misappropriation of whatever fund that we have helped to generate.
All right.
It does not encourage tax payments, so we should do everything to prune down on this expenditure so that tax payments will be
flexible. We'll leave it
will
here.
Be encouraged.
We'll leave it here. Tomorrow is the deed, and I'm sure that after the presentation, then we'll have more time to digest the issues. But let me bring in briefly Professor Kwesi Prempeh. Professor Kwesi Prempeh is the Andrews University in the United States of America. Prof, you're welcome. You've heard the expectations. Everybody's expectation is quite high, especially with the new government and the promises that we've been told. E-Levy will go, COVID-19 will go, the betting tax will go. Some have suggested that will leave a gap of over 7 billion Ghana cedis in our revenue generation. At the same time, where even monies owed contractors run in excess of 100 billion Ghana cedis. What should government do as it meets expectation and also generate the needed revenue to execute government business to meet its obligations?
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your viewers. Dr. Obin, good afternoon. As I know, Ghana will prepare our budgets based on what we term as cost-based budgeting. All the expenses are planned and allocated, and then we now come and look at the revenues coming in. We know that the current government, the NDC government, campaigned saying that they were going to take away 3 main taxes. In some research work that I have done, I supported them in removing these 3 taxes, the E-Levy, the betting tax, and COVID. These levies were established for specific purposes.
Right.
If you look at the E-Levy, for instance, the E-Levy itself should have been part of the communications service tax. From the history of this tax, when it was established, before NDC left in 2016, the rate was 6%.
Right.
Then the current government in 2019, the NPP government took it to 9% in 2019. And then in 2020, they brought it back to 5%. If you ask me, if you are doing away with the E-Levy and the betting tax, and the purpose for these taxes, as were established, to go to youth employment, that is the purpose that the CST was established for.
Right.
So to reset it, I am hoping that the finance minister will reset it back to the 6%. And then he may be able to do away with these 2 taxes, E-Levy and betting tax. So if you go back to 6%, it will make up for the gap that is missing. Another area that they can also use to make up for any loss in revenue. One, we all know the property tax, which we have talked about for so many years.
Yes.
And then also rent tax. They go together. It is not only the property tax, but the rent tax must also be looked at. If you look at the GRA's tax reporting, these two taxes, the amount of money that they bring in is not very significant.
Right.
So if the government is going to say that we are going to be more friendly, we are going to make sure that we come up with a strategy to collect the property taxes and the rent tax, it is going to make up for any shortfall that may come in taking away the E-Levy and the betting tax. For the COVID-19 tax, if you ask me, it was established for a purpose. No country is now, COVID is no more.
Absolutely.
It's been, so there's no need for it. Then also they must also look at the rationalization. If you look at the way our VAT system is done and the calculation, it is tax on tax, which takes you to about that 22% in calculation. As Dr. Obin mentioned, we need to simplify our tax. So we have to go back to the input-output tax, and I know that Tepe have been talking about it. So I'm expecting that once we simplify it in a way that it was established, then it's going to reduce the rate from that 22% to the actual rate needed. And as Dr. Obin mentioned, if the tax rate is fairly set, taxpayers will not evade or avoid the tax. There in economics, there's something called the lava curve. When your tax rate becomes so huge, people will evade or avoid.
Of course, they'll find ways to avoid it.
Revenue. So it is better to bring the VAT into the input-output tax regime so that the rate will be normalized. And in that case, you get taxpayers being comfortable in paying because they know whatever I pay, I'll be able to claim it as an input to offset whatever that I sell, so an output. So it becomes very something easy for us to manage. So that is something that I'm expecting that it must be addressed in it. And it's part of the NDC manifesto. So I know he's talking about time, but this is something that needs to be done because the tax evasion and avoidance that is happening in the country is because the rate is too high.
What about, the exchange rates? Can something be done about it?
So the proposal from the trade is that they are hoping that it moves from, instead of having it reviewed weekly, can we set it to quarterly? I know it was part of the NDC manifesto when the president went to Abosukan. That was what he told the Abosukan people. So I'm expecting that, as you have said, let it be captured in the manifesto. Indeed, listening to the finance minister yesterday, he mentioned that they are going to work in a way that we see stability in the exchange rates volatility. So it is something that if we can all work together, ensure that price stability will come, the major impact will be on the exchange rate because the volatility is what is causing prices to change. On your news this morning, when the minister went out, someone told the person that there's an item that within 3 weeks, the price has increased by 35%.
And it's almost everywhere. It's almost everywhere.
So, and the main thing is because of the volatility in exchange rate. So, if we are going to address that quarterly valuations, then it's going to give the traders some leeway to plan. And that will really help us. So this is, and we know now, as inflation is coming down, if they're able to work assiduously at what all the strategies reduce the cost push elements, we are hoping that the volatility in exchange rates will come down. And then we see the price stability. When we see the price stability, traders can now plan.
Okay.
And the economy can move on as we expect.
Prof, my final question, because we are awaiting the formal presentations. My final question, the governor has hinted that they will be announcing special incentives for entities that want to take advantage of the government 24-hour economy program. One of them includes some cheap electricity at some time of the day, and then security provision to help them stay afloat. Are these things that is it a way to go to actualize this?
So if you listen to them, they are trying to find a way to boost production.
Right.
And we know in the night, especially we know the peak time of electricity use ends around 12 to 11. Thereafter, the consumption really drops. So if the government is going to come in with a plan to boost production and with that incentive, the trade-off between production increasing and reducing electricity prices at that time will offset itself. However, we may have to see in the budget which line item will be the government setting funds aside to pay for any gap that may come because of this policy.
Okay.
We really want to see a specific line item. It's not just political talk. If not, we are also going to worsen the ECG situation. But we may have to see a line item that's saying that we are setting X amount of funds based on this from this point to support any shortage that may come out from this policy, which is something that we really need to do. In principle, it's good to start or to kickstart productivity and also create employment. The beauty is that if it works very well and companies are able to do the 3-1-1 strategy,
right,
the PAYE from the additional 2 employees is going to increase the tax revenue.
Okay.
And that may be used to offset the energy cost, the energy reduction cost during the peak period. So this must be carefully watched, but we need to also do a lot of empirical exercise to make sure that within 6 months, Ghana is not shortchanged. And then also there must also be strict compliance because manufacturers are rational beings. All of them will stop their day production
and do night,
and then move to the time that the tariffs are lower. So government must have to have a strategy in place to monitor that manufacturers are not just find a way to beat the system. They stop the day production and move to the night production because the tariffs are lower. So anyone who signs on it must really see a 24-hour production, right, but not just switching from daytime to nighttime to benefit from the change in tariffs.
Prof, thank you so much. Tomorrow will be the D-Day and we'll have more on this matter. Thank you so much, Professor Pripra from the Andrews University in the United States of America. Now, President John Mahama says he has gained new perspective on the concerns raised by the 3 countries regarding their withdrawal from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. He promised to relay these concerns to fellow leaders during the upcoming ECOWAS summit. In the media briefing following a closed-door meeting with Burkina Faso's military ruler, Captain Ibrahim Traore, he emphasized that the core issues behind the withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS is a breakdown in trust. President Mahama's visit comes at a critical time when relations between ECOWAS and the 3 countries remain strained following their decision to leave the regional bloc. Just a brief chat on this matter. Let me bring the Executive Director of the West African Center for Counter-Extremism, Muktar Mumuni Mukhtar. Mr. Mukhtar, will President Mahama be able to bring them back to ECOWAS?
Well, first of all, we need to establish the reality of, the necessity for these engagements that President Mahama is undertaking. If you consider that Ghana is at the moment under siege in terms of security, we are ambushed by security from all our northern, eastern, and western borders. And the fact that all these countries are dealing with violent extremism and terrorism, including these coup-led countries, it creates the necessity for the president of Ghana to reach out to build a relationship around goodwill and support, not only in terms of trade and economic cooperation, but also in the area of security, and ensure that we do not experience a spillover effect or phenomenon of violent extremism on our soil. And if you consider the fact that these coup leaders, I mean, these countries, the Alliance of Sahelian States, not only decided to form a regional grouping around security and defense cooperation, they have also decided to leave ECOWAS. And that is a huge challenge. And I understand this. I mean, it is a question you are asking whether President Mahama would be able to bring them back on to ECOWAS. Yes. I think that it's still early days yet. But if you notice, what President Mahama is doing is significantly in the interest of ECOWAS. If you go back to January this year, when the exit from ECOWAS became effective on the 29th of January, you saw ECOWAS issue a statement to announce the official exit of the Alliance of Sahelian States. But they left a door open. They left the door open in the sense that they did not include the reality of our suspension of the ECOWAS's protocol on free movement of goods and services. And that allowed, I mean, that meant that ECOWAS intent, I mean, is, interested in still engaging in the hope that they would be able to succeed in bringing them back to ECOWAS. And it's in the interest of regional security and ECOWAS generally. And what President Mahama is doing is along those lines, the bigger objective of getting them back to ECOWAS. And so far, it appears to have generated significant goodwill and support from stakeholders. And so we watch to see how that progresses, to ensure that we get them back to ECOWAS.
Ghana, like you mentioned, is in a peculiar position in terms of our proximity to these countries. Now, if the status quo remain and these three countries decide to hold their own in terms of security, in terms of intelligence sharing, in terms of cooperation, economic activities, who stand to gain, and how does that affect even intelligence sharing to address the issue of invasion and other activities that may not augur well for the stability of our countries?
If we fail to get them back to ECOWAS, it would undermine regional security. It would be a big loss and disincentive to both parties. A big disincentive to the Alliance of Sahelian States, and the same to ECOWAS. And all of us stand, to suffer for it, in the sense that it would undermine intelligence sharing and coordination of efforts in terms of preventing or countering violent extremism and terrorism. And so both parties know the cumulative effect and impact of working together to address security. These security matters are not isolated or specific to any country. They are very regional in nature, and they cut across borders, thriving on regional criminal networks and vulnerabilities within the region generally. And so it's in the interest of regional security and our interest as ECOWAS to ensure that we'll work to sustain, to re-establish a good relationship with the Alliance of Sahelian States. Operationally, how this could happen is that we could still have the Alliance of Sahelian States allowed to function as they deem it or they wanted to function, but we still maintain the membership of these countries and ensure that they benefit and enjoy the same benefits as other members and the same obligations that come with membership of ECOWAS. In fact, this would not be new because there are other regional blocs that have different memberships and constitutional compositions and who are still part of ECOWAS. And so we could create a kind of operational relationship in this manner.
Right.
That should augur well for regional cooperation in terms of security and trade. And I think that, so far we are quite on the right path towards that.
My final question would be, Mukhtar, is it also not about time ECOWAS reset itself? When these takeovers took place, some suggested that the way ECOWAS treated them was quite disrespectful to the sovereignty of the countries involved. Now, ECOWAS is trying to get them back. Isn't it about time ECOWAS also look at how they relate to some of these when these coups happen? Some are also saying that in the absence of laws and convention, there will be chaos. How does ECOWAS go about this?
Yes, I agree with you. And some of you may remember when ECOWAS, responded to the coup situation in Niger in particular. I mean, we saw that as an overreach. And so we were very, very vigorous in terms of campaigning against the intended action against the coup leaders in Niger. And my understanding is that, we appreciate that ECOWAS seemed overwhelmed at the time because they were still struggling and dealing with previous 3 coup situations in the region. And so it was, not surprising that you would see some kind of overreach in terms of response to the situation. But what we need to do from hindsight is that we need to restructure ECOWAS's capability when it comes to the issue of regional security and, dealing with political instability in the region. To be fair, ECOWAS has been significantly successful, at least, for half a century in dealing in terms of the full movement of goods and services. What we need to do is augment its capacity to deal with governance issues, to deal with political and security issues, to ensure that, they are addressing the vulnerabilities before we actually get to situations where we find ourselves in now. And yes, I agree, it's about time we looked at these aspects of ECOWAS to strengthen it and ensure that it delivers for the reasons it was intended to, for setting now.
Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening. Security Express. When we talk there. Now we'll take a short break here on a pause and return. Well, before we go, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu, has disclosed that Ghana lacks specific mandatory requirements and enforceable laws to regulate lead content and paints manufacturing. His remarks follows Joy News Hotline documentary American Paints, which exposed critical regulatory gaps in the industry. Up next, we'll hear from him, but first, excerpts from the documentary American Paints.
In a related study, out of the 46 paints analyzed on the Ghanaian market, the team found out that 15 of the paints contained high lead levels. This is a sharp increase compared to the team's data collected in 2023, where 6 out of the 59 paints analyzed contained high levels of lead. The acceptable lead level in Ghana should be 90 ppm. However, of the 15 high lead paints, 5 were found to be new brands on the Ghanaian market. Also, 4 paints that were less than 90 ppm in 2023 were now above 90 ppm. The highest lead content found in one of the paints stood at 200,000 ppm. That means any household that uses this particular paint is exposing pregnant women and children to lethal brain damage and other neurological problems. Lead is added to paint as a pigment or a drying agent. As this paint ages, lead in chips and dust contaminates living spaces and is easily ingested by small children. Even low levels of exposure can torpedo kids' IQ, motor skills, and other important neurological functions, and have been linked to poor academic performance, behavioral problems, and criminal activity. Dr. Charles Cranche is head of product certification at the Ghana Standards Authority.
If you have lead in paint that exceed this limit, prolonged use, mind you, this lead is an example of a heavy metal. Now, these metals, once introduced into the body, it takes a very long time. One day, they're able to bioaccumulate. So then if you paint your room and the paint contains lead, you'll be exposed to this lead over time. And these things will build up in your system. So then it can result even in a neurological damage, whereby you start having issues with your nervous system. There's also, you can even have some of your organs impairing.
Right, I was hoping we could hear from Professor Dodo, but he's made it clear that laws are being formulated to regulate this particular sector. That's our show for today. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. Whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope is profitable. My name is Elton Lewis. Tomorrow, we'll be here to digest the 2025 budget and economic statement of government. Until then, take care.